You ready to go? In the fall, when I was 9 years old, my father and I went out into the forest to cut firewood. In the rain at the base of a mountain shrouded in low-hanging clouds, my father parked his old pickup. I remember the creak and slam of the doors and the cold wetness of the day. I remember trudging off into the dripping scrub alder, knee-deep in wet salal, carrying the jerry can and a jug of chain oil. My father came up behind carrying the chainsaw and the axe. We didn't go far off the road. After all, we'd have to pack the wood out in trip after trip till the truck was full. My father found a nice big spruce windfall that had come down the year before and had lain on the ground drying over the summer. At the age of 9, it was all I could do to swing the axe, but swing it I could. And if I could, it became my job. The summer dried branches snapped off under the slap of that sharp, heavy steel. Even in the cold rain, I sweated. I moved up the trunk, clearing the branches, as behind me my father pulled at the starting cord of the chainsaw. There were some flatulent misfires and then the high-pitched snarl of the Husqvarna. He cut as I cleared, the sawdust flying out and laying in wet heaps, regular, even-spaced, coating the front of his Mackinaw, sticking sometimes to his wet face. The scream of the saw rose and fell, the exhaust hung in the air like a halo. Steam rose from us and from our breath. Through it all, like sad background music, was the fall rain, hissing down just enough to make things miserable. Before long, that first tree lay in pieces, big discs of wood. Over and over, we carried those heavy sections of tree trunk back to the truck, loaded it, stacked it carefully, went back for more, over and over, back and forth. There was still room in the truck bed when we finished, and still plenty of daylight to work. My father sat down, opened his thermos, poured a cup of coffee, and said, "Go look for another tree." I walked off into the brush, into that gray, dripping wilderness. The rain hissed and drummed on my head. I wandered, looking about, deeper and deeper. 9 years old. 9 years old and not paying much attention to where I was going or where I'd been. 9 years old and never thinking about what came next. After a while, I knew I had come too far. I sure as hell didn't want to pack chunks of wood all that way back. I turned to walk back to the truck, back to my father, back. I looked around. Everything looked the same. Everything looked confusingly similar, identical, gray and wet, and identical. And no direction seemed to be the right one back. At first, the fear was slow to rise. I can't be lost, I told myself. Why not? A quiet voice whispered in my head. I started to move a bit faster, a bit more erratically, nervous now. I can't be lost. Why not? The voice said, a little bit louder now. I spun around, looking frantically. Tree trunks, nothing but tree trunks, salal, blackberry, and darkness in the distance. I looked in every direction. I felt the panic rising inside my chest. I wanted to yell, but it was strangling me. Dad? It was a croak, not even a whisper. My mouth desert dry. I tried again. Dad! Barely speaking now. And then the terror like an avalanche thundered down on me. Dad! Nothing. The quiet hissing of the rain on the branches was all the answer I got. Dad! I ran then, crashing through the fallen branches, tripping, falling, terrified. Nothing looked right, nothing looking familiar. My gumboots sliding and tripping on that goddamn wet salal, screaming for him over and over, hearing only the rain and the faint echoes of my screams coming back from the mountains. Finally, panting, shrieking, my chest bursting, I fell on the ground and lay there sobbing, my eyes closed, wishing myself somewhere else, praying, hoping it was all a nightmare. I sat up, trying to catch my breath, and saw a few yards away sawdust on the ground. Sawdust. I ran over there, and there were piles of sawdust. There were the branches I had cut. It seemed like days before. I knew where the truck was now, and stumbled my way to it, blubbering, to find my father sitting on the tailgate, thermos cup in his hand, a disgusted look on his face. I was lost! I wailed, sobbing. I was lost! You weren't lost, he said. You were never more than 100 yards away. Didn't you hear me calling? I asked, the fear still sitting inside me like a cold piece of brick. Sure I did. But I have work to do, and I don't have time to run around the woods looking for some idiot kid who gets lost in a grove of trees. I'm sure if he were alive today, my father would tell you that he taught me to rely on myself and not panic in a crisis. I'm sure he'd tell you that it helped make me a man. I'm sure he would tell you that it served to toughen me up. Yes, I learned a lesson that day, standing there in the cold rain, wet through, still gasping, snot and tears smeared on my face, looking up at the man I used to trust. I learned a lesson that I never forgot. I learned that when I became lost again, as I grew into a man, not to bother calling my father for help, because he wouldn't bother to answer.